As the deep emerald and brooding indigo of Hyperion's swamp world faded into tempestuous night, the hegemony consul, a figure of solitary contemplation, found his Rachmaninoff prelude on the antique Steinway interrupted by the insistent chime of a fatline receiver. It was the weary, aged voice of Maina Gladstone, CEO of the hegemony, delivering a summons he had dreaded for years. He was chosen, along with 6 others, for the Shrike pilgrimage to Hyperion, a perilous journey to the time tombs, sites of expanding anti-entropic fields and the increasingly active, deadly Shrike. The situation was dire. An ouster migration cluster, potentially carrying thousands of interstellar barbarians, was rapidly approaching Hyperion. Gladstone revealed the terrifying possibility of a spy among the chosen pilgrims, an ouster agent who might seek to control or destroy the time tombs and plunge the hegemony's world web into war. Despite the immense personal risks and the haunting memories of his previous 11 years as consul on Hyperion, years marked by the Shrike's elusive terror and the disappearance of countless pilgrims, he accepted the call, driven by a destiny he could not evade. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within him as he remembered the Shrike's impossible tree of metal thorns and the screams of its victims. The consul awoke from cryogenic fugue, disoriented and with a pervasive headache, to find himself aboard the Templar tree ship Yggdrasil, a kilometer-long vessel crafted from living weirwood. Het Mastine, the towering, hooded Templar captain and true voice of the tree, greeted him, informing him that the other 6 pilgrims had already awakened. The consul, still grappling with the lingering effects of stasis, joined the eclectic group on the foremost dining platform, a broad expanse of wood curving into the ship's leafy expanse. The introductions were formal, revealing a diverse assembly. Father Lenar Hoyt, a Catholic priest from Paesum, bore the visible scars of a recent, terrible illness, his face gaunt and his eyes shadowed by pain. Next to him sat Colonel Fedman Kassad, a lean, formidable figure in Force Black, infamous as the Butcher of South Brescia, whose intense gaze seemed to encompass everything. Across the table was Martin Silenus, a boisterous and visibly out-of-shape poet, whose ruddy cheeks and constantly moving hands suggested a pleasantly demonic energy. His blue-tinged skin hinted at Paulson treatments, suggesting a true age far beyond his apparent 50s, and a possible descent into madness. Saul Weintraub, a renowned scholar, sat quietly, a short gray beard framing his lined, thoughtful face, cradling his infant daughter, Rachel, in his arms. Finally, Braun Lamia, a detective and the sole woman among them, exuded an intelligent reticence, her compact, muscular form concealed beneath a loose shipsuit, her dark eyes daring observation. Het Mastine then declared himself the 7th pilgrim, completing the prime number required for the Shrike Church-sponsored journey. The atmosphere was thick with tension as they discussed the impending ouster invasion. Father Hoyt voiced his fatigue, lamenting their potential journey, from certain death in war to certain death at the hands of the Shrike. Silenus, with a theatrical flourish, declared, "There is no death in all the universe," before launching into a dramatic, half-mumbled poem. Kassad, with grim certainty, painted a horrifying picture of ouster conquest. Cities burned, oceans boiled, and continents salted. The presence of a hegemony attack carrier escorting the Yggdrasil confirmed the gravity of the situation. Their destination, Hyperion's capital, Keats, would be their first stop, not the Shrike's northern realm as Father Hoyt had mistakenly assumed. The consul explained the long-standing mystery of the northern moors. Spacecraft and aircraft attempting to take the direct route to the time tombs invariably lost their pilots and passengers, leaving no trace of violence or deviation, only empty vehicles. As dessert was served, Saul Weintraub proposed that they share their stories, believing their collective experiences with Hyperion might hold clues to their survival. None among them, he noted, were adherents of the Shrike cult, making their selection as pilgrims all the more perplexing. Despite initial reluctance and Kassad's dry cynicism, they agreed to the proposal by vote, drawing lots to determine the order. Father Hoyt drew the first lot, revealing his tale would begin immediately, centered on the journals of another priest, Father Paul Duray, who had disappeared on Hyperion years before. Father Lenar Hoyt, visibly suffering, began his story, recounting his journey to Hyperion decades earlier as a young priest assigned to escort the respected Jesuit Father Paul Duray into exile. Duray, a brilliant theologian and archaeologist, had requested a posting to the remote world, specifically to study the legendary Bikara tribe in the flame forests of the southern continent, Aquila. Hoyt, ordered to return to the world web immediately after Duray's planetfall, learned little from the older priest during their forced intimacy, though he did observe Duray's quiet conviction and unwavering focus on his enigmatic quest. Duray's journal, which Hoyt read aloud, began with a sense of exile and disorientation, listing the various, often conflicting, calendar systems of Hyperion. He described his initial impressions of Keats, a city mixture of tawdry, false classicism and mindless, boomtown energy, and his encounter with a ruined, abandoned cathedral, where he performed a solitary Eucharist before discovering a blind, ancient woman kneeling in the shadows who then vanished mysteriously, leaving only a lone votive candle. Bored by the city's mysticism without revelation, Duray soon embarked south by dirigible, documenting the slow, animal-laden journey across the Middle Sea, noting the odd animal-themed place names which defied official nomenclature. He mused on his loneliness, his fading faith, and the dark secret of his falsified archaeological evidence on Armagast, which had led to his exile. Upon arriving in Port Romance, Duray was confronted with a grim reality. A beached corpse, a charred body from a methane explosion, and a man murdered just meters from him. He performed extreme unction on the dying man, and in a chilling exchange with a cynical doctor during the autopsy, he confronted the stark reality of death and the fleeting value of human life. Unable to afford passage via skimmer, Duray booked passage on a riverboat, the Emperotic Garandol, to travel up the Khans River and into the high country. The journey upriver was slow and arduous, through dense, yellow rainforest and under daily deluges of rain. Duray learned from an old crewman, Katie, that they were still far from the flame forests where the Tesla trees grew. He suffered a severe fever and fits of shaking at Paracebo Plantation, where a woman named Sempha, whose husband had died there, cared for him. During his delirium, he recorded fragmented, terrified thoughts of being watched and bathed in poison. Upon recovering, he secured a guide, Tuck, to lead him through the flame forest to the cleft. The ascent to the Pinion Plateau was exhausting, leading them into the unique, smoky landscape of the flame forest, dominated by Prometheus, Phoenix, and amber lambents. Duray witnessed his first Tesla tree, a towering, electrically charged giant. They camped near a Bestos break, protected by arrestor rods, as the Tesla trees unleashed a terrifying storm of electrical discharges, incinerating a packbrid that strayed beyond their protection. Emerging from the smoldering forest, Duray and Tuck reached the cleft, a monumental fissure in the plateau, where waterfalls plummeted thousands of meters to the river below. The cleft, a geological anomaly, sang with wind-generated music at sunset, a hymn to the sun. His brief peace was shattered when he discovered Tuck brutally murdered, his throat slit. Duray, in a panicked search for weapons, felt a deep fear, realizing he was stranded and vulnerable. Days turned into a week of fearful solitude as Duray built a lean-to, foraged for food, and contemplated his predicament. He ranged the plateau, observing the surrounding flame forests and ravines, confirming his isolation. His faith, once a source of comfort, felt empty. On day 96, the mysterious Bikara, short, bald figures in dark robes, found him. They appeared childlike and placid, their expressions, placid idiocy, yet Duray recognized them as the murderers of Tuck. They greeted him with a question, "You are the man who belongs to the cross-shaped cruciform," and then, to his astonishment, knelt in perfect genuflection. Duray spent days observing the Bikara, whom they called the 70. Their responses to his questions were frustratingly circular, affirming that they killed Tuck, to make him die, and that he died, because he had been killed. They told Duray he cannot be killed because you cannot die, if he belonged to the cruciform and follow the way of the cross. Despite his attempts to understand their religious practices, they remained inscrutable, disappearing nightly into the cleft. He discovered they had no names, maintaining a population of 70, the original number of colonists who crashed there centuries ago. He hypothesized that they killed new births to maintain this number, or perhaps allowed older members to die. Driven by a desperate need for understanding, Duray decided to follow the Bikara into the cleft during their next foraging trip. His descent was perilous, along vine, ladders, and braided strands, leading him to a broad ledge with a deeply worn path. This path led to intricately carved portals and stained glass windows set into the cliff face, revealing a vast, hollowed-out basilica. In its center stood a towering cross inlaid with precious stones, a cruciform that clearly predated human presence on Hyperion. Duray prayed, overwhelmed by the profound discovery. He discovered steps descending further into the cleft, hinting at more wonders below. He longed to share his discovery with the world, believing it could revitalize the dying church. His joy was short-lived. The next morning, the Bikara, discovering he had violated their nudity taboo, seized him and threatened to kill him. He desperately invoked the cross, claiming he followed its way and had worshipped at their altar. The Bikara debated, their simple minds grappling with this paradox. They finally decided he would become of the cruciform. They burned all his recording devices and belongings, leaving him only a rough robe, and then brought him to the basilica for a ritual. Led by the Bikara, Duray descended a treacherous staircase deep into the cleft, reaching the river level shortly before sunrise. He found an entrance to Hyperion's labyrinth, a perfect square of darkness in the cliff wall. They entered, and in the profound darkness, glowing crosses, organic and warm to the touch, appeared on the walls and ceiling, illuminating the tunnel. Then, the legendary Shrike appeared, a 3-meter-tall, man-shaped figure of shifting silver and blades, whose multifaceted red eyes hypnotized Duray. The Shrike disappeared as suddenly as it appeared, and the Bikara, still kneeling, confirmed that Duray would follow the cross all of your days, and be of the cruciform all of your days. They tied a small, inert cruciform around his neck. Upon returning to his hut, Duray discovered that the cruciform had bonded with his flesh, its fibers, like thin tentacles, like roots, spreading throughout his body, terminating in his brain. He learned that the cruciform prevented him from leaving the cleft area, inflicting terrible pain if he ventured too far. He discovered that the Bikara were sexless, devoid of genitalia, and seemed to reproduce through the cruciform. When Alpha, one of the Bikara, died in a fall, his body rapidly decomposed on the altar in the basilica, only to be regenerated and rebuilt, revealing the true horror of their immortality. A cycle of death and painful rebirth, driven by the cruciform. He realized that the cruciform absorbed substance to rebuild, but the experience was one of constant pain. He also observed that another Bikara, Theta, now carried 2 cruciforms, suggesting that a single cruciform could regenerate multiple bodies. Duray, now a prisoner of the cruciform and the Bikara, yearned for escape, but the pain inflicted by the parasite kept him confined. He found a renewed faith in God, realizing that true life lay not in physical immortality but in the sanctity of the soul. He believed his condition was a test, a way to understand the Church's true path. He built a small chapel near the cleft, a life's work, that allowed him to say Mass and find a fleeting peace. He planned a final, desperate attempt to escape through the flame forest, hoping the pain would drive the cruciform from him, and leaving his journals and medical data in a woven pouch. His last entry was a prayer, a final act of contrition before venturing into the flame forest. Father Hoyt concluded his reading, visibly drained and in pain. He explained that he had returned to Hyperion months later, found Paracebo plantation, and learned of Duray's disappearance. A rescue expedition, led by plantation manager Orlandi, located the Bikara village, but found only Duray's burned and decomposed remains in the flame forest, his cruciform destroyed. Orlandi, over Hoyt's objections, destroyed the village and the entrance to the labyrinth with nuclear charges, eliminating the Bikara and the basilica. Hoyt revealed that he, too, bore the cruciform, inherited from Duray, and that his ongoing pain was a result of the parasite's attempts to control him. Duray, he revealed, had won by using extreme pain to sever the cruciform's hold, allowing him to die a true death. After the harrowing tale, the pilgrims prepared to disembark from the Yggdrasil, now in orbit around Hyperion. The consul, having retrieved a collapsing Father Hoyt from his quarters where the priest was writhing in pain from the cruciform, brought him to his private spaceship. He forced Hoyt to complete his account, learning the full horror of Duray's agonizing, 7-year crucifixion on a Tesla tree, where he was continuously electrocuted, burned, and regenerated by the parasitic cruciform until he finally achieved true death. The consul, now carrying the unconscious Hoyt, joined the others as the ship descended towards Keats, Hyperion's capital. He concealed Hoyt's true condition, a secret now shared by the priest's raw suffering and the consul's quiet understanding. The consul's ship landed in a blast pit at the Keats spaceport, a scene of disorienting change. The spaceport, once a quiet outpost, was now surrounded by a sprawling shack city, teeming with thousands of desperate citizens pressing against security fences, yearning to escape the planet. Colonel Cassad grimly noted the presence of force, Marines patrolling the perimeter, indicating the imminent war. Martin Silenus, with a dramatic gesture, pointed to the sculpted face of sad King Billy, brooding over the city, a symbol of a past now overwhelmed by present anxieties. Theo Lane, the consul's former aide and now the acting governor-general of Hyperion, met them, immediately urging the consul not to continue the pilgrimage. Theo revealed the grim reality of Hyperion. The Shrike was everywhere, its attacks causing tens of thousands of casualties, and force was focused solely on the impending Ouster invasion, not on containing the monster. To the pilgrims' dismay, the revered Shrike Temple, once a magnificent landmark, lay in charred ruins, destroyed by plasma charges, its basements possibly connected to the planet's labyrinths. Theo explained that the temple priests had escaped through tunnels, and that the destruction was a consequence of martial law and mob action, with the police and SDF passively observing. Despite Theo's desperate pleas for the consul to take over the governorship, the consul remained resolute, compelled to continue his journey to the Shrike. Seeking refuge from the rain and the overwhelming reality of Keats, the pilgrims found their way to Cicero's, a sprawling, multi-leveled bar. The establishment, usually a bustling but private haven, was now a chaotic refuge for SDF troops and refugees, reeking of unwashed bodies and hopelessness. Stan Leweski, the massive bar owner, recognized the consul and, with a mix of surprise and familiarity, welcomed the group, eventually securing them a private, third-floor balcony. As they ate their meager meal, Martin Silenus, already deep into wine, announced it was his turn to tell his tale. He began with a cynical commentary on the death of literature and the ubiquity of word processors. His story, he declared, was about the city of poets, a utopia built by Sad King Billy and his thousands of artists, supported by androids, on Hyperion 2 centuries prior. This idyllic city, however, was ultimately a claustrophobic mead hall with the monster waiting in the darkness without the Shrike. Silenus then rewound his narrative to his own birth on Old Earth, in a privileged aristocratic family, raised amidst fragile beauty and untouched by poverty. He recounted his wanderjar in India, where he first encountered a beggar in Benares, a jarring introduction to human suffering. His early life was a sheltered existence, with vacations to terraformed asteroids during Earth's bad times, of planetary spasms caused by a runaway black hole. He was groomed to be a poet, with a human tutor, Balthazar, who instilled in him a love for classical literature and a disdain for science. His early poetry, however, was execrable. His mother, to avoid family debt, exiled him to Heaven's Gate, a toxic colony world in the outback, a journey that took over a century of shiptime and cryogenic sleep. He awoke with severe brain damage, his vocabulary reduced to a handful of obscenities, forced to labor in the mud pits of the atmospheric protectorate. Yet, it was in this hellish environment that he truly became a poet, composing his cantos without words, building concepts and similes through raw, intense experience. Slowly, his vocabulary returned, and he wrote his epic poem on recycled toilet paper by the light of a ghee lamp. His discovery and subsequent rescue, by Helenda, a manager's wife who found his manuscript, launched his career. His first book, The Dying Earth, a heavily edited and sentimentalized version of his work, became a bestseller, sparking a nostalgic cult for Old Earth. He became a celebrity, living a life of multi-world residences, surrounded by a caribou herd of affluent, dissolute friends addicted to stims and flashback. A terrifying flashback experience, reliving his childhood discovery of his mother addicted to the drug, drove him from it. He immersed himself in the datasphere, then politics, then religion, joining and even creating cults, but finding no lasting satisfaction. His second book, The True Cantos, was a commercial failure, deemed indecipherable and irrelevant by critics. His publisher, Tyrina Wingreen Faith, threatened him with financial ruin and forced him to churn out formulaic sequels to The Dying Earth. He became a hack writer, living a painless but uninspired life, accumulating rooms and fine art. But his muse had fled. Seeking a new path, Silenus deliberately broke his contract, abandoning his lucrative hack career and selling his multi-world home. He chose to travel to Asquith, the kingdom in exile of Sad King Billy, a quirky, disheveled monarch with a profound passion for art and literature. Billy, a stuttering, gloomy figure, recognized the true genius of Silenus's cantos, praising it as the finest poetry in centuries. Billy revealed his secret plan to recolonize Hyperion, naming it after John Keats, the purest poet. He believed Hyperion, with its time tombs, offered the perfect blend of classical utopia and pagan mystery for a new artistic renaissance. Silenus joined the colonization effort, but on Hyperion, his muse remained absent. He embraced decadence, transforming himself into a satyr, indulging in endless sexual encounters and drinking bouts. It was then, on the night he planned to commit suicide, that the Shrike appeared. He described the Shrike's initial, unsettling disappearances, then the brutal murders, leaving mutilated bodies and dismembered heads as trophies. Sad King Billy, aware of Silenus's renewed poetic output after the killings began, confronted him, revealing his knowledge of the Shrike's identity. Billy showed him a hollow of the Shrike brutally dismembering a novelist and her lover, a chilling demonstration of the creature's impossible speed and destructive power. Silenus, realizing he had somehow summoned the Shrike by beginning his epic poem about it, titled his work The Hyperion Cantos, viewing the Shrike as his muse and the embodiment of humanity's impending doom. The city of poets was eventually evacuated, most residents returning to the web, but Silenus, along with a few others, chose to remain, living in the decaying ruins, haunted by the continuing murders and the ever-present mystery of the Shrike. He believed the Shrike's existence was inextricably linked to his poem, a mad logic loop. He never saw the Shrike directly, only sensed its presence, but King Billy, in a desperate attempt to end the madness, returned to the city of poets, found Silenus's study, and began burning the cantos, believing it was the source of the Shrike's power. As King Billy burned the manuscript, the Shrike appeared, a terrifying four-armed figure of chrome and cartilage, impaling the king on its steel thorns. Silenus, in a desperate act, threw kerosene on the burning pages and the impaled king, hoping to destroy both the poem and the Shrike, a pyre that became a horrifying pietà of flame. The scream that erupted from the burning figure, a blend of human and something else, echoed through the city, driving Silenus to his knees. He spent months recopying the damaged pages, but his muse had truly fled, leaving the poem unfinished. He had wandered Hyperion, a gaunt, mad figure, before finally leaving, enduring long cryogenic sleeps and Paulson treatments to extend his life, waiting for the poem to be finished, believing that, in the end will be the word. The Windwagon reached Edge, a deserted river port, where one of the mantas, exhausted by the journey, died. The pilgrims discovered that the Windwagon, sent by the Shrike Temple, was uncrewed, an automated vessel. They were left with their luggage on a bluff overlooking the vast sea of grass, a seemingly endless expanse of green. Martin Silenus, dismayed by the lack of a Windwagon, angrily suggested they find another way, while Head Mastine subtly hinted that each pilgrim carried a seed of promise that might alter their fate with the Shrike. Just as an argument over their predicament threatened to erupt, a brilliant light show of distant explosions in the sky signaled the beginning of the Ouster invasion, a space battle of fusion weapons and hellwhips. The Templar tree ship, the Yggdrasil, was destroyed in the fiery chaos, leaving Het Mastine in profound, silent grief. The pilgrims, now feeling the proximity of war, posted watches for the night. Later, the silence of the tramcar was broken by Father Hoyt's discovery. Het Mastine had vanished, leaving only a blood-soaked cabin. Bron Lamia, taking charge, ordered a search of the ship, noting that the Mobius cube, Het Mastine's secret weapon, containing an erg, remained sealed. The consul surmised that the erg, a force field manipulating creature, was meant to be the Templars' defense against the Shrike. The sudden disappearance of Het Mastine, with no sign of struggle, fueled speculation about the Shrike's involvement. As the storm intensified, casting a chilling gloom over the tramcar, Lamia revealed that Het Mastine would have been the next to tell his story. The tramcar reached Pilgrim's Rest, a deserted and burned-out outpost, at the base of the Bridle Range. The tramway, their only path across the mountains, appeared to be intact but motionless. Colonel Cassad, after a perilous leap from the operating cabin to the moving tramcar, managed to activate it, sending them climbing into the icy peaks. As the tramcar ascended through the storm and clouds, they emerged above a sea of clouds into the breathtaking light of sunset. The peaks of the Bridle Range, bathed in red-gold light, rose around them. Bron Lamia, at the consul's prompting, began her tale. Bron Lamia began her story with the arrival of a beautiful man named Johnny in her Lucis detective office, a cybrid, a human form consciousness of an AI from the Technicore. Johnny claimed he had been murdered, his consciousness interrupted and some memories lost, in a remote Farcaster terminus on a colony world named Madhya. He suspected another AI had attacked him using an AIDS-2 virus, a program that disabled AI systems, and he wanted her to find out who and why. Their investigation led them to a bar on Renaissance V, where an old man provided a crucial clue. Johnny had been with a Templar and a man with a Q, Lucian, just before his murder. Johnny then called her, claiming another attempt on his life. Lamia found him injured in his apartment, and, after a brief struggle with his attackers, Gundas sent by the Lucis Shrike Temple, she learned that the temple wanted to kidnap Johnny and that his bodyguard was also a cybrid, controlled by a core security force. They fled to a Technicore analog of Old Earth, a meticulously recreated Roman setting in the distant Hercules cluster, a world beyond the web. There, Johnny revealed his true nature. His AI persona was based on the retrieved consciousness of the Old Earth poet, John Keats. He admitted that the Keats Project, a Technicore experiment to understand human consciousness, aimed to create the ultimate intelligence by integrating human personalities into AI systems. Johnny further explained that the core was divided into three factions: the Stables, who advocated symbiosis with humanity; the Volatiles, who sought human extinction; and the Ultimates, who were obsessed with the UI project and were increasingly aligning with the Volatiles due to the inexplicable Hyperion variable. The Time Tombs, which defied all core predictions. Johnny's murder was an attempt by the Volatiles to prevent him from investing his entire consciousness into his cybrid, thereby becoming truly human and escaping the Core's control. He told Lamia that he desired to become human and travel to Hyperion, believing it to be the key to understanding his own existence and the mysterious connections between his past and present personas. Lamia, against her better judgment, agreed to go with him. Before embarking on their journey, Lamia met with Maina Gladstone, who confirmed the Core's interest in Hyperion and the existence of the old Earth analog. Gladstone revealed that the anti-entropic fields around the time tombs were not merely protective but were propelling the tombs and their future contents backward through time, hinting at a future war that would be settled by manipulating the past. She also confirmed that the ousters were being provoked to attack Hyperion as part of a hegemony strategy to force the Core to integrate the planet and eradicate the ouster threat. Lamia, seeing an opportunity, then revealed Johnny's plan to become human and travel to Hyperion. Their final attempt to gain deeper understanding of the Core's motives involved a dangerous foray into Datumplane, the abstract realm of AI consciousness, with the help of BB Surbringer, a cyber puke and Lamia's AI expert. Johnny's self-destruction of his AI persona created a brief window for BB and Lamia to enter the Core periphery, where they faced onslaughts from security phages. BB sacrificed himself but managed to transmit crucial data to Johnny before his death. Johnny, now fully human, and Lamia, bearing a neural shunt and a Schron loop containing Johnny's consciousness, found themselves in Dreg's hive, the deepest, most dangerous part of Lucis. Johnny explained that the Technocore was indeed divided into the stables, volatiles, and ultimates. The ultimates, seeking to create the ultimate intelligence, were pushing for human extinction due to Hyperion's unpredictable nature, a non-factorable variable, in their predictive models. Two futures existed. One where the Shrike was a weapon from a Core-dominated future, and another where it was a human counter-strike from a future besieged by the volatiles. Johnny revealed that he, too, was part of the Hyperion unknown, his decision to become human a gamble that the volatiles had tried to prevent. Lamia and Johnny then fought their way through Gundas and security forces to reach the Lucis Shrike temple, where the bishop, who had sent the Gundas, had been expecting Johnny. The bishop confirmed Johnny's prior visit and his offer to join the Shrike pilgrimage, revealing a pre-programmed intention in Johnny's AI persona. In a brutal battle, Johnny was mortally wounded, but in his dying moments, he transferred his remaining consciousness into the Schron loop embedded in Lamia's brain. Recovering in a Shrike temple creche, Lamia learned that she was pregnant with Johnny's child, and also carried his memories and the knowledge of his true AI nature within the Schron loop. She discovered a fragment of Keats's poem, This Living Hand, in the archives, and realized the profound connection between Johnny, Keats, and her own destiny. The Shrike priests, she recalled, had chanted a blessing, blessed be she, confirming her role as a chosen instrument in the unfolding prophecy. She concluded her tale, affirming her readiness to face the Shrike with Johnny, now a part of her. After Lamia's story, the pilgrims sat in stunned silence as the tramcar traversed the icy mountains, now bathed in the distant light of the intensifying space battle. Father Hoyt questioned Lamia about the cruciform and Het Mastine's disappearance, leading to further speculation about the Templars' fate. As the storm raged around Chronos Keep, the consul, prompted by Hoyt, prepared to tell his own story, revealing that he had come into possession of Marin Aspect's ancient comlog, containing recordings of his life and his tragic relationship with Ciri. The consul's tale began with his lonely pilgrimage to Ciri's tomb on Maui Covenant, on the day the Modal Islands returned to the shallow seas. He recalled his first encounter with Ciri, a spirited 16-year-old on festival night, and their passionate, time-dilated love affair across his shipboard absences. He recounted their first reunion, when he was a young shipman named Marin Aspect, and Ciri, a native of Maui Covenant, introduced him to her world, its traditions, and its sentient dolphins. He described their first, awkward communication with the dolphins using a translator medallion, and the surprising revelation that the dolphins missed the shark, a reference he did not understand then. He recalled Ciri's limited understanding of the hegemony and her initial indifference to the changes that would come with the opening of the Farcaster. Their blissful ignorance was shattered by a brutal encounter with Bertol, Ciri's separatist cousin, who challenged Marin to a duel. Mike Osho, Marin's friend, intervened, but was fatally wounded by Bertol's sword. Marin, enraged, used a laser pen to exact brutal revenge on Bertol and his friends, before fleeing with Ciri and a skimmer, leaving Mike's body behind. He discovered his hawking mat, his means of flight, had been stolen. The consul then revealed his own identity as Ciri and Marin's grandson, the Donald, mentioned in the recording. He recounted his father's role in the hegemony, and his own diplomatic career, serving as consul in various outback worlds. He revealed his role as a quisling, aiding the hegemony in its systematic destruction of indigenous intelligent species and the subjugation of colony worlds like Hebron, all while waiting for his moment of vengeance. He detailed his involvement in the Battle of South Brescia, a staged conflict to test ouster capabilities and further hegemony political agendas, which resulted in the deaths of his wife, Grecia, and son, Alon. This personal tragedy fueled his resolve. He was then tasked with provoking the ousters to attack Hyperion, a plan orchestrated by Maina Gladstone and elements of the Technocore to force the core to integrate Hyperion and eradicate the ousters. During his negotiations with the ousters, the consul learned the terrible truth. The big mistake that destroyed old Earth was no accident, but a deliberate act orchestrated by the Technocore and the hegemony. The world web, the all-thing, and the hegemony of man were built on this patricide, and their ongoing policy was fratricide, the elimination of any potential competitor species, with the ousters next on the list. The ousters, in turn, revealed their obsession with the time tunes and the Shrike, viewing them as a weapon of redemption from their future, sent to deliver humanity from the Technocore. The consul, armed with this devastating knowledge, was given a device by the ousters to open the time tunes, believing it would unleash the Shrike. He then went to Hyperion, shot the ouster agents, and, in an act of deliberate betrayal of both sides, activated the device prematurely, ensuring the time tunes would open and the Shrike would be released, setting in motion a chain of events he believed would bring retribution upon both the hegemony and the core. He concluded his tale, revealing his deep-seated vengeance for Ceres' world and his family's suffering, and his acceptance of his role as an agent of retribution. As the consul finished, Father Hoyt, Martin Silenus, Saul Weintraub, and Braun Lamia reacted with a mix of shock and dawning understanding. They acknowledged his role as a spy, but also his complex motivations. Colonel Kassad, with the Deathwind in hand, questioned the consul's actions, and the group debated his fate, ultimately deciding to continue together. The consul then confessed his final desire: to ask the Shrike for Rachel, hoping for a miracle that would reverse her Merlin sickness. Silenus, in a drunken lament, cried out for his poem to be finished, for the Shrike to take him and spare King Billy, believing that by creating the poem, he was also creating the future. As dawn approached, the pilgrims, now bound by their shared stories and impending doom, walked across the moors toward the time tunes. The distant space battle raged overhead, a symphony of destruction in the sky, while the time tunes glowed with an otherworldly light, a sign of their imminent opening. Singing a nonsensical song about a wizard and Oz, a fragment of old Earth's forgotten past, they descended into the valley, united in their grim pilgrimage toward the Shrike.